Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour in the Middle East, where the pendulum is swinging again from recent attacks to renewed hope. This morning, optimism is growing over a peace deal between the United States and Iran. That's after President Trump paused the U.S. operation to escort stranded tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, which he dubbed Project Freedom. He says the pause is meant to give both sides more time to try and reach a peace agreement. The president later posted on social media that great progress has been made on a final agreement. The effort to move those stalled commercial air traffic through the vital waterway led to a flare-up in attacks in recent days, both in the Strait and in the United Arab Emirates. But the Trump administration is downplaying the violence, saying the ceasefire still holds. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr joins us now with the latest. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. President Trump said this pause in escorting ships through the strait would be for a short period of time while the two sides work through mediators toward a breakthrough in stalled negotiations. A pause in Project Freedom, citing progress toward a comprehensive peace deal with Iran. President Trump putting the U.S. military operation to guide commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz on hold to, quote, see whether or not the agreement can be finalized. The president noting the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports stays after saying he hopes economic pressure will force Iran to make a deal.
They should do the smart thing, and because we don't want to go in and kill people. We really don't. I don't want to.
Earlier this week, Project Freedom kicked up exchanges of fire as Iran targeted American ships passing through the strait and the U.S. forces protecting them. Top military officials say they intercepted Iran's drones and blew up their small boats, but that it was all below the threshold for restarting major combat operations.
Right now, the ceasefire certainly holds, but we're going to be watching very, very closely.
Iran's top diplomat said peace talks were progressing through Pakistani mediators. The central sticking point has been the U.S. demand that Iran abandon any nuclear ambition and give up its enriched uranium.
We can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio underscoring that while responding to frustrations over soaring gas prices since the war began.
If Iran had a nuclear weapon, and they decided to close the straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8 a gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon.
That as Iran renewed attacks against its neighbor and U.S. ally, the United Arab Emirates, risking more damage to oil infrastructure. And Secretary Rubio heads to Italy today. He's set to meet with Pope Leo amid President Trump's sharp criticism of the first American pontiff who has vocally opposed the war. The president is now accusing the Pope of being okay with Iran having a nuclear weapon. He responded that the Catholic Church has always opposed nuclear weapons and that any criticism of him for proclaiming the gospel should be based in truth.
So, Alice, the Pope issue aside, what more do we know about just the status of negotiations toward a peace deal with Iran?
Yeah, so President Trump said in his post that he was pausing Project Freedom at the request of Pakistani leaders who've been mediating and have been pointing to progress. Iran said earlier this week it was reviewing a U.S. counter-proposal and now new this morning the price of oil has been plunging, stocks surging in early trading off hopes from a new Axios report that the U.S. believes it may be nearing a deal to end the war with Iran and eventually reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz. Axios cited two U.S. officials and two additional sources. NBC News has not independently verified that, but clearly markets are looking for some good news here, Joe.
All right, Alice Barr in Washington. Alice, thank you. Election results are in for several high-stakes primary races, helping us better understand where each party stands as the midterms approach. In Ohio, the stage is now set for a governor's race that includes former Republican presidential nominee Vivek Ramaswamy. He handily won the party's nomination to take on Democratic contender Dr. Amy Acton. She's the state's former health director. Both are now running to succeed Ohio's outgoing Republican Governor Mike DeWine. As for Congress, NBC News projects that former State Representative Derek Merrin is the winner of the Republican primary for Ohio's 9th congressional district. He'll take on Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur in what's expected to be a battleground race there this fall. And former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown won the party's nomination. He'll now challenge Republican Senator John Husted as Democrats try to take back control of the U.S. Senate. In Michigan, NBC News projects that Democrats will hold on to control of the state Senate after Chedrick Green defeated Republican Jason Tunney in a special election. That's a district former Vice President Kamala Harris narrowly carried back in 2024. And in Indiana, voters largely sided with President Trump in his push to oust 7 state senators who disagreed with his efforts to redraw the state's congressional map. NBC News chief data analyst Steve Kornacki breaks down all the results.
Well, a handful of state Senate Republicans in Indiana voted against the president's bid to change the congressional map mid-decade to favor Republicans. He said he would make them pay a price in the Republican primary. And wow, did he ever. Here you go. You can see these are the state Senate districts in Indiana that Trump targeted in Tuesday's primary. 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 incumbent senators who voted against that redistricting plan and who Trump specifically targeted were defeated. There's a 6th race that's outstanding. There is 1 incumbent who survived, but most of these incumbents lost, and they lost by overwhelming margins. Check this one out. I think it's indicative. Most of the vote is counted. Travis Holdman here is losing by more than 20 points. Travis Holdman is not just any incumbent. He's also a member of the state Senate Republican leadership, the 3rd-ranking Republican in the state Senate, a long-serving lawmaker. He has been trounced in this Republican primary, and you saw landslide margins like this throughout the state in these other districts. Again, these are all incumbents going down to defeat in these Republican primaries. You can see, look at this, a margin of almost 50 points here. So folks looked at these races in Indiana as sort of a test of the president's clout with Republican primary voters within the party. There had been talk, certainly, with his approval ratings dropping, with some Republicans getting nervous about the midterms this year. You know, was there going to be more room to maneuver if you were a Republican and you were airing some objections with Trump? Were the voters ready to give you more room to maneuver? It's hard to look at these results from Indiana last night and say the answer to that is yes. These are voters who clearly are saying that in this battle over redistricting, they're on the president's side, not the side of these lawmakers who defied him.
All right, Steve Kornacki, thank you so much. For more reaction from the White House, let's bring in NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz. Megan, good morning. So when President Trump first called for this redistricting in Indiana, Republicans in the state Senate voted that effort down, basically, seeming to show some of the limits of Mr. Trump's influence there. He vowed to get this revenge by backing these primary challengers, and he got it. So how is the White House responding to these primary results?
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, so President Trump has not issued a statement himself, but he did repost a statement from Senator Jim Banks, a Republican of Indiana, who said in that statement that everyone in Indiana politics should have learned an important lesson today. President Trump is the single most popular Republican among Hoosier voters. Now, as you mentioned, this is a really important races to watch because this was a rare example of Republicans having had a rebuke of President Trump in this redistricting battle. And so this latest the latest results show a victory for President Trump in ousting some of those incumbents who had rejected that redistricting push. Now, separately, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Iowa yesterday. He was there to support an incumbent Republican candidate who's expected to face a tough re-election campaign this fall. During his remarks in Iowa yesterday, he also touched on things like people feeling higher prices, and he called the war in Iran a blip. I want you to take a listen to what else he had to say.
A lot of our farmers are struggling with high fertilizer prices. I'm aware of that. As the President of the United States has said, we got a little blip in the Middle East. We've got to take care of some business on the foreign policy side. But you know what we're doing simultaneously? We're working with the congressman, and we're finding ways every single day to make sure that you guys and the farmers of this great state get access to the products that they need. We're working on it.
Those comments perhaps previewing how Republicans are going to address some of those top issues that voters are thinking about as we're getting closer to midterm elections this fall in really interesting races to watch like those in Iowa, Joe.
And Megan, I want to get to another headline out of Washington. Turns out taxpayers may ultimately be on the hook for $1 billion in these security improvements related to the White House's East Wing construction project. That includes President Trump's 90,000 square foot ballroom. What do we know about this new spending proposal?
Yeah, so this was a proposal that was included as part of a bill for funding the Immigration and Border Patrol. And in that bill, it included $1 billion that was set aside, according to the bill, for security adjustments and upgrades relating to the East Wing modernization project, which, as you mentioned, includes the White House ballroom. Now, that bill said that it would include funding related to security for both above ground and below ground security features. Now, this would be part of a reconciliation package, meaning that it would not ultimately need Democratic votes in order to get over the finish line. But Democrats are saying that they're going to try to force a vote ultimately to try to strip out this ballroom provision out of the bill. But meanwhile, the White House is framing this as a necessary measure that Congress is recognizing. We heard from a White House spokesperson who framed this as a proposal that would help the Secret Service ultimately harden the White House complex, Joe.
And Megan, real quick before I let you go, the suspect who's accused of trying to assassinate President Trump during the White House Correspondents' Dinner was indicted yesterday on a new charge. What do we know?
Yeah, so Cole Tomas Allen, he was indicted by a grand jury in D.C. yesterday on 3 of those counts that we had already seen be unveiled. But there was also a 4th count, a charge of assaulting a federal officer with a deadly weapon. Now, the latest charge comes after alleged evidence that the suspect had shot a Secret Service agent as he ran through that security checkpoint ahead of being tackled ultimately by Secret Service and being stopped. Now, in terms of what comes next, he is expected to appear before a judge the morning of May 11th for an arraignment on this latest indictment, Joe.
All right, Megan in Washington, thank you so much. The FBI director is making headlines for comments about the Nancy Guthrie case. It has been more than 3 months since Nancy, the mother of our colleague Savannah Guthrie, disappeared from her Arizona home in the middle of the night, and officials still do not have any solid leads. Now, FBI Chief Kash Patel is criticizing the Pima County Sheriff's Department for how it's handling the investigation. He claims local investigators should have involved the FBI sooner. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has the latest.
In a newly released podcast, FBI Director Kash Patel raising new criticism about law enforcement cooperation in the unsolved disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, mother of our colleague Savannah.
The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical.
Patel tells Sean Hannity that the Pima County, Arizona Sheriff's Department waited too long to engage the FBI.
We're here to help. What do you need? What can we do? And for 4 days, we were kept out of the investigation.
Nancy Guthrie was reported missing on Sunday, February 1st. However, the Pima County Sheriff said they called the FBI 1 day later on Monday.
That morning, it wasn't days later that we contacted that morning, we contacted the FBI.
And that Tuesday, the sheriff and a Tucson-based FBI official held a joint press conference. The director praises the Bureau for the biggest lead in the case.
When we were finally let in, Sean, look what we did. We went in and got the Ring doorbell, and we said, hey, is anyone talking to Google?
The FBI contacted Google, and they recovered those chilling images from the door camera system.
That's why you have that image, because the FBI worked with Google to put that image out.
That suspect remains unidentified 3 months later. The director also cited differences over handling DNA evidence. Pima County chose a Florida lab it regularly used.
We would have analyzed it within days and maybe gotten better information or more information. Our lab's just better than any other private lab out there. And we didn't get a chance to do that. So I understand everybody's frustration.
Nancy Guthrie remains missing. No arrests have been made. While the director had no specific updates on the case, the FBI told me its investigators are still actively working on this case. We also checked with the Pima County Sheriff's Office about Patel's critique, and the office said that they don't have any additional information to share. Now, throughout the conversation with Sean Hannity, Director Patel did acknowledge that Pima County has jurisdiction, and so the decisions that were made were theirs to make because the case remains in their hands.
All right, Kelly, thank you. Evacuations are underway on the cruise ship dealing with that deadly hantavirus outbreak. This morning, 3 passengers were evacuated from that ship that's anchored in the Atlantic. Follows the deaths of 3 other passengers. Uncertainty is now growing over where the passengers will be allowed to disembark after officials from Spain's Canary Islands rejected a plan for the ship to dock there. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now with the very latest. Raf, good morning. So what do we know right now about the 6 passengers who were evacuated from the ship? And just walk us through the challenges for health officials here who must take care of those passengers, but also help everyone else who's stuck on board.
Joe, good morning. So, yeah, in the last couple of hours, those 3 passengers taken off of that cruise ship, they were moved by small boats to Cape Verde, the islands that they are moored off of. And from there, we believe they are going to be taken in specialist medical planes to the Netherlands, where their treatment will continue. Now, 3 people taken off. 2 of them are suffering from acute symptoms of what is suspected, at this point not yet confirmed, hantavirus. The third is an individual who was traveling with a German citizen who has already died. So it's not clear if that person is particularly sick, but they, clearly need to move on based on the trauma experience they have been through. Those 3 have come off the ship. Coming onto the ship, Joe, 2 Dutch doctors who are going to supervise medical care on board until that cruise ship is able to dock somewhere and those passengers are able to disembark.
So, Raf, we know the World Health Organization is saying that there are 2 lab-confirmed cases and then 5 suspected cases of hantavirus on the ship. It was supposed to head, as I mentioned, to the Canary Islands. That no longer seems to be happening. This is sort of opening up these issues here. Everyone's stuck on the boat, but no one really wants to take them in. So where could it possibly go now?
So there is a lot of confusion right now, Joe, about where this ship is going to head. Quick reminder, the Canary Islands are Spanish islands, but they're basically off the coast of Morocco. They are a long way from mainland Spain. And what we heard earlier from the Spanish national government is that they are prepared to take these passengers onto land in the Canary Islands. What we've been hearing overnight from the local authorities in the Canary Islands is they are saying, we don't want them here. We are very worried about an outbreak on our small remote islands. So you do seem to have this standoff, but it appears that it will be the national government that does have the final say. And we are hearing from the company that runs the cruise ship, Joe, they are saying Spain has a moral and legal obligation to assist these people, among whom are several Spanish citizens. Joe.
Raf, during the COVID pandemic, we all became very familiar with the term contact tracing, and we understand that's now underway to just identify those who left the ship during its voyage and then who might have been in contact with those people. We should remind people, this ship, it's not like a 4-day cruise. It set sail back on April 1st in Argentina. So what are we learning about when the outbreak might have actually started?
So, Joe, the World Health Organization is saying their working assumption right now is that this is called the Andes variant of the hantavirus. That is a variant that can be transmitted from human to human as opposed to from rodent to human, and it tends to be clustered in Argentina and in Chile. So the working assumption of the WHO is this originated somewhere in South America. One of the passengers contracted the virus on land, brought it onto the ship, and as you say, there is now urgent contact tracing going on, especially focused on passengers who were on a plane where a sick passenger who got off the cruise ship, got onto land and got on a flight to South Africa. They are trying to find the people who were on that plane because that sick passenger went on to die in a hospital in South Africa. Jeff.
All right. Raf Sanchez with an update there. Thank you so much. We are tracking some severe storms in the south and a winter storm in the Rockies. Let's get a closer look with your Morning News Now weather and meteorologist Andrea Romero. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. That's right. We were talking about snow in May, and that's because we have this winter storm that's been bringing heavy snowfall, especially to the mountains. Here in Colorado, the south central Rockies are being impacted by the snowfall. We're expecting the possibility of over 2 feet of snow that can accumulate in this area. We have winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings in effect through tonight for that area. And then we can see that precipitation extending into the northeast, but it's rain that's falling in this location as well as in the southern plains and into the Mississippi Valley, where we are expecting this frontal system to continue to bring that rain to that area all the way up into New England. The severe threat is focused here in parts of East Texas into Georgia for today. We're talking about all types of hazards, damaging hail. Tornadoes are likely and possibly strong tornadoes, and that's specifically focused in that area there that we see in parts of Mississippi, Alabama, where we have that enhanced risk of severe weather with wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour possible for that location. We're also looking at heavy rainfall, 1 to 2 inches per hour, that could result in some flash flooding in those locations. So it's going to be a busy weather day in those areas. You want to make sure you have a way to receive those weather alerts on your phone, because we are expecting those hourly rainfall rates of 1 to 2 inches. As far as the snowfall amounts, we can still see anywhere more than half a foot of snow to a foot of snow in some areas there in Colorado with that snowfall. And of course, we're seeing snow because it's simply so cold in that location. We have frost and freeze alerts. Over 18 million people are being impacted this morning. Temperatures in Denver, 30 degrees, 20 degrees in Casper, and that cold air will continue to move on east as this front sweeps through. We're experiencing it. Yesterday we were in the 80s. This morning it's like in the 60s, but it's not going to go much higher than that.
No snow is what you're saying in the forecast for the East Coast.
Yeah, no snow.
If we're still talking about snow on Memorial Day, we'll have to do something about that. All right, Andrea, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.